he's an unbelievable. I mean, I only worked with him for a couple of months. He's the best player I've ever sort of witnessed close up in my whole career. And
Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live podcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Tuesday morning, 41 minutes past the hour of 9 a.m. It took me longer to get here because I'm still gathering my thoughts and, in regards to the Barcelona loss last night, so I thought, I should find the right temperament to discuss these things. Anyways, I hope you're doing well. We do come from a weekend of controversy, and by extension, Monday Night Football was not spared because you had a couple of contentious decisions who, if you ask a Barcelona fan, will think they shouldn't have lost that game, or perhaps they should have won that game. Another one perhaps will think they shouldn't have lost. Another one perhaps will think, yes, we did not deserve to win, but we did not deserve to lose either, So it's that kind of feel or thing where you say it was a difficult game. Barcelona did everything they could to try and win it, including we had a penalty miss by Lamine Yamal. And according to Barcelona fans, I've been watching some of the frames for the penalty, and they seem to suggest that one of the Girona players quickly invades the area of play before Lamine Yamal gets his shot off. And ordinarily, when you have that kind of violation of the rules, then the penalty ought to be retaken, and which wasn't the case. So I'm sure Barcelona fans have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb to try and find every little snafu, every little mistake, every little error, marginal or otherwise, blatant or not, deliberate or not, depending on their own view, to see if they can find to see where they can fault or find fault on the referee. And I mean, it's understandable. We all do it, especially when we find our teams on the losing end of things. And we believe that the game has not been sort of fairly, has not been fairly presided over. So that's the kind of case you have, that sort of impression, that's what you get from this particular fixture. And like I said, we're coming from a weekend that was marred by referee decision controversy. Starting, you have to go back on Saturday. You remember we talked about that game between Inter Milan and Juventus. It wasn't short of that. And because we've had a chronology of some of these bad decisions being made over the last couple of weeks, and even though football is not immune to bad decisions, and it's not like the last couple of weeks, that's when they've been more pronounced or made the biggest headlines. But some of these mistakes have been so blatant. Then we went on, I think, still on Saturday, as in the late kickoff in the FA Cup, where Chris Kavanagh was so poor as a center referee that even his assistants did not do much to help, And right now, we have a match official being taken away from the limelight because of his inefficiencies. Because for me, I believe the Premier League's way of penalizing referees for bad decisions or for poor performances is by simply putting them out, of the limelight. They simply put them out of the firing line for a week or two, and then suddenly they bring them back. So I don't think that's a work. Maybe it works for their PR reasons, but in terms of having teachable moments, it doesn't. Previously, also, I'm privy to the fact that they've sent referees to officiate games in the Sky Championship or even lower, just as punishment to say, yeah, when you come at the highest level, excuse me, there are certain expectations that are laid upon you. There are certain expectations that you must live to, or standards in that sort of case, and yet you feel one too many times people keep falling short of those very standards. You get the point. So Barcelona yesterday, all those fans must have walked away thinking, well, must have walked away thinking the game is being skewed. And usually, if the game is being skewed for one, it means that is meant to favor somebody else. Today, this morning, I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, and I saw this guy called, anyway, I forget the name, but the account belongs to a Manchester City fan. And they're saying, well, everybody is trying to make it easy for the Arsenal. Why? Simply because the draw put Arsenal, the FA Cup 5th round draw, put Arsenal against Mansfield. And then you have Manchester City play away to Newcastle. And then the reason that's why I don't want to read too much into that is because the reason that's why I don't want to read too much into that is because he doesn't talk about Chelsea, who play away to Wrexham. He does not talk about Sunderland, who play away to either Port Vale or Bristol City. None of that. Simply, what he looks at is because he thinks there is a two-horse race for the Premier League title between Arsenal and Man City. So every time Arsenal or Man City, or every time Man City get a harder fixture, then in a gap competition, then that means it's meant to advantage Arsenal. And for those of you that are regulars on this channel, will know for a fact that the other day, I think yesterday morning, I was here making the case that any Premier League opponent in that sort of draw would have loved to avoid another Premier League team, even though Liverpool drew against Wolverhampton Wanderers. They'll be playing away to Mourinho for the 5th round. That, especially if you're Man City, you're Liverpool, you're Arsenal, and you're still in as many competitions, you want to avoid big opponents so that you have sufficient rotations within your squad and load management. So for me, that's the angle with which I looked at it. But you have a conspiracy theorist in the form of a diehard Man City fan trying to load it otherwise. So in this particular case, the reason as why I cite that example is to build up the point that I want to make about the Barcelona game, that you will find some Barcelona fans who are thinking, oh, they did this to us so that Real Madrid remain at the top, so that Real Madrid can win the league. They don't want us to win the league back to back because Barcelona are the reigning champions of the Spanish La Liga, So really, you have that, and let's be honest. There's a couple of poor decisions throughout the game. So we started off with the penalty incident. Lamine Yamal, who I thought, of course, any player misses a penalty, good or bad, great or otherwise. We've seen big players at the biggest of stages miss penalties. That's true. But you see, I thought in the way Lamine Yamal takes that penalty did not embody the significance of the moment. But I also know that that's easier said than done. What do I mean? That it's easier for me to say that after he's missed. If he had scored, I wouldn't be making the same comment. I'm alive for that. I'm alive for that flip side of the coin. So, but see, over the years, having watched players like Frank Lampard, having watched players like Harry Kane, and some of those sorts of players, I've been advantaged to see the seriousness of a moment, that if they are going to miss a penalty, first of all, they'll miss it because the goalkeeper was good, not because they were poor. They'll keep it on target. They'll hit it with power. They're not going to do anything fancy. And it's not because they themselves are not fancy. I mean, never mind, none of them was ever fancy. They were just hardcore, professional footballers about the grind and, that kind of thing. So the point I'm trying to make is that at that moment, the game is still goalless. You're destined for halftime, and going into halftime with the lead sort of gives you some bit of leverage or advantage in the game. And there's something about skilled players, skilled small players, and the lackluster kind of feel or body language that they have to them. I particularly remember this of Mesut Ozil, players like Juan Manuel Mata. You look at Lionel Messi, in a way, they have that sort of laziness to them. Look at a Cole Palmer. Now, in that laziness or that lackluster feel, sometimes lays their greatest strength or weapon. But I thought Lamine Yamal should have done better. But also, for the other caliber of players that were on the Barcelona team, I don't know if that's Hansi Flick's choice, that for as long as Lamine Yamal is on the pitch, he should be the one taking a penalty. I do not know. But at that time, first of all, you still have Rafinha on the pitch. You still had I'll go with Rafinha because he's one of the leaders, Then you had Frankie de Jong, but more importantly, I'll look at Rafinha because he's the most senior of all. So you miss the penalty, and then you go into halftime without that goal advantage. So it's 0-0 at halftime. Then you come back through Pau Kubasi, you get that first goal, and 59th minute, it's 1-0. Unfortunately for Barcelona, they couldn't keep it together because 3 minutes after getting that goal, Thomas Lemar scored to make it 1-1. So you could see that their lead did not you could see that their lead did not last. And I've said this time and again, every time a team scores a goal, whether it's the opening goal, whether it's an equalizer, whether it's the winning goal, supposedly at that moment, that's when they are most vulnerable to conceding. We've seen it time and again. So basically what Girona did is Barcelona was still in that heat of the moment, of the feel-good factor of having taken the lead. And bang, Girona squad to restore parity. Yes, Pedri Bola, Barcelona lost. I slept again and they lost. I don't know whether you mean that in a painful way as a Barcelona fan. I don't know if you're gloating because both, for the statement you gave, it does qualify for both. But I would want to think that you're still grieving that loss. Anyways, we're talking about a game. If somebody tells you that Girona have completed the game with the madness, I feel it doesn't do it justice because the red card comes very late on in the game for a dangerous foul on Lamine Yamal, and it's a straight red card. So if, matches are here at 1:30 a.m. Oh, you're from the USA, right? Yeah, I suddenly understand that. I understand that. So we have to be awake till 3:30 a.m. I completely understand that. The reason as to why I understand that is because I watched India. Yeah. Oh, wait a bit. If you're in India, if the game is at 11 in Barcelona, that means, if the game kicks off at 11 p.m. East African time, because that game kicked off East African time, and you guys are about what? 2 hours ahead of us. That means 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. So India. I completely understand. I was also going to make reference. I don't know if you had the chance to watch the World Cup, the FIFA Club World Cup in the USA, and some of those games were kicking off at 4 a.m. Now, for you guys, that's very early in the morning. For us, games that kicked off at 4 a.m., that means for you it's about what? 6 a.m., 6:30? then games that kicked off at 1 a.m., that meant that for you, that's 3 a.m., you know? So, nah, that's not normal. I completely understand. But unfortunately, the world can never align to a uniform time. We know for a fact that a country like Russia has more than 9 or more than 8, 9 times different time zones. So, but anyways, it is what it is, you know? And then, so the game sort of remained in that sort of state. And to be fair to Girona, for me, they look to be the more threatening and better side for certain key moments in the second half. And when they get that goal through Beltran, it looked impressive. Now, there's a player, he's called, I'm trying to find the name. Okay. I'm trying to find the name, but the Roca, I think is he called Julio Roca or something, who provided the assist for Beltran's goal. So he appears to have fouled Jules Koundé in the build-up to the goal, and it is true that he fouls him, but then it boils down to the judgment of the referee to say, well, he played the ball and it's the fall through in which he fouls Jules Koundé. And at that moment, he's passed on the ball to Beltran. You know? So they go ahead and score, and the referee says the goal will stand. VAR does not intervene because the question is it a clear and obvious error by the referee? They certainly do not think so. Why? Because Julio or Julio plays the ball before fouling Jules Koundé. So Barcelona fans think that should have been called for foul. And I don't disagree with them. But here's the principle or the thing. If the referee calls that for a foul before the goal is scored, he's right to say, yeah, you played the ball, but that fall through was a bad tackle on Jules Koundé. So it's a foul. You get my point? So if he calls it, it's a foul. But if he doesn't call it, on the other side, it's still justifiable that he plays the ball before they fall through to foul Jules Koundé, and then they go on to score a genuine goal. You get my point? In the same game, excuse me, there's another goal that was ruled out for offside. And I've been seeing some Barcelona fans trying to make a fuss about it because it's ruled out because Robert Lewandowski, even though he doesn't touch that ball, is in an offside position. Dear Barcelona fans, let's be critical of every officiating decisions, but let's also be objective enough not to blind ourselves, because if we bastardize the debate, then we will lose the point. And like I keep saying, what works against you this weekend could be the same thing you rejoice the subsequent week, especially for the emotional fans. So, yes, Lewandowski is in an offside position. That's one. Two, he does not get a touch of the ball. That's a fact. But the other critical fact is he makes a deliberate attempt from an offside position to play the ball. He jumps to try and put his head to the ball. He only misses. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the rules or modalities of the game, it's not just about being offside. I'll give you an example. How many goals have you seen being ruled out because a player in an offside position is judged to have obscured the vision, the line of vision for the goalkeeper to try and prevent that ball from getting into the back of the net? That's one. So if we have something against obscurity, like obstructing the goalkeeper and it's called for foul, then how about a player who is offside, who makes a deliberate attempt to play the ball, but only misses? So in other words, if he touches the ball, he should be offside. But because he didn't touch the ball, even though he made an attempt to play it, he shouldn't be. No, we cannot go down that rabbit hole. So you'll excuse me on that one, Barcelona fans. There I won't agree with you. But like I said, it was the kind of game where Barcelona feel a lot of decisions did not go their way. That's what they will feel. In fact, Hansi Flick walked out on the interviewer. Flick is asked, is it a foul or not? Come on, come on. You can't say it. That's Flick is asking, is it not a foul? Is it a foul or not? Come on, come on. You can't say it. Journalist, I'm just here to ask questions. And I don't get that nonsense about journalists. Yes, I understand you're supposed to be objective and you're there to ask questions. Does that take away what you've seen? So in other words, if the referee makes a mistake, as blatant as you may have seen it, and I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm simply saying in any given scenario, you as a journalist interviewing the other party are not allowed to say, yeah, you're right, the referee got that one wrong. Are you not allowed to say that? So Flink says, don't have an opinion. Well, then I have nothing to say. So he tells the journalist, if you do not have an opinion, then I have nothing to say to you. In other words, he's baiting him to say, meet me halfway here. And guess what? He does not necessarily have to agree with Hansi Flick. He could simply say that the foul is after he's played the ball. And that's his school of thought. Because he plays the ball before the fall through, then the goal should stand. Now, obviously, Hansi Flick would disagree, but at least he's made his case or given his view. In this particular case, he doesn't, So now, so we've talked about the penalty incident for Lamine Yamal, for whom some Barcelona fans are of the view that it should have been replayed or retaken. We've talked about the disallowed goal with the involvement of Robert Lewandowski, even though he doesn't touch the ball, but he's in an offside position. Then we've talked about Girona's second goal. Now, first of all, Girona as a home team gained so many advantages, if we are being honest. They gained so many, and yet Barcelona feel they gained so little. So it did feel for them like the game, like I said in the preamble, had been skewed against them. That's what it felt for them. That's what it felt like for them. So, and you see, if you're going to demand for justice in society, in the game, you must come with clean hands. We've equally seen Barcelona get away with much. But two wrongs do not make a right as well. So we'll leave it at that. But yeah, Barcelona lost to Girona by 2-1. That means they stay in second place, 2 points behind Real Madrid. Excuse me, guys. I don't know why I overyawn in the mornings these days. But whatever the case is, we'll move on. So you have You have that sort of feel if you're a Barcelona fan. I go back, I think, to somebody reminded us that, do you remember Barcelona won the was it the game against Vallecano? I think it's not even last season. I think it's against Vallecano by a goal to nil through a penalty. And VAR did not take note of the error in awarding a penalty. But then again, it's the nature of decisions. Because VAR are not supposed to intervene whenever they please. They are supposed to intervene when there is a clear and obvious error from the referee. Was that the case? It's not believed to have been the case. You know? So, like I've explained it, the reason as to why VAR did not intervene in that particular case is because there's no clear and obvious error by the referee to the best of their judgment. They believe, one, the referee has seen Julio or play the ball, and yes, maybe through a fall through, he makes contact with Jules Koundé. He doesn't know how bad it is or how nasty it looks. It depends, again. And then he judges that, yeah, game has to continue because that for him is not worthy of a foul to stop a goal scoring opportunity or moment. And he proceeds with that. As simple as that. You know? So I've told you about the penalty incident. Yep. But it's been that kind of weekend. It's been that kind of weekend. It's been that kind of weekend, mad with referees, controversies. We saw what happened with Federico Lapena in the Juventus Inter Milan game. We saw what happened with Chris Kavanagh in the Newcastle Aston Villa game. And perhaps that's only to mention but a few, because we do not have the opportunity to watch every single game that transpired in the weekend. Anyways, allow me to move on from that, because tonight the UEFA Champions League does return for the playoff rounds. And today, Galatasaray will play Juventus. That game comes at 8:45 p.m. Borussia Dortmund take on Atlanta at 11 p.m. Monaco versus PSG, as well as Real Madrid versus Benfica at 11 p.m. East African time. That's for the four fixtures that will be played on Tuesday. God willing, inshallah, we will be here for a live watch along for the game between Monaco and PSG, as well as Benfica versus Real Madrid. So then on Wednesday at 8:45 p.m., Karabakh will take on Newcastle. Olympiacos will be up against Bayer Leverkusen at 11 p.m., as well as Bodo Glimt at home against Inter Milan. And then Club Brugge will take on Atletico de Madrid. Now, these are 8 games played by 16 teams. Teams that finished between 9th place and 24th place on the UEFA Champions League group standings. Sorry, league phase table standings. So, at the end of a round robin, that's home and away play, the eventual winner on aggregate score is one that will advance. 8 of those teams will advance to meet the top 8 to form the round of 16 for the UEFA Champions League. And then the competition will go hence on from there. So the first legs are to be played this week, and the subsequent week, that's when the reverse fixtures will be played. Excuse me. So yeah, that's what you should expect on that regard. Plenty is happening. Plenty is happening. Juventus Galatasaray, big game. Victor Osimhen, Lucas Torreira in that Galatasaray team. Ikai Gundogan, Leroy Sané, all former Man City players. Big game. Juventus back from a very unconvincing win or loss, or performance. They didn't deserve to lose, in my opinion, but they still lost. Players like Pierre Karuru, Cambiaso, Kinan Yildiz, the young Turk, or Turkish international, Winston McKennie, you know. Then PSG got beat last week on Friday by Stade Rennes by 3-1. Newcastle in high spirits after beating up against Aston Villa in the fourth round of the FA Cup. Bodo Glimt, we know that they positioned themselves as giant killers on match day 7 and match day 8 respectively. They beat up against Man City and Atletico de Madrid, with Atletico Madrid game being away from home, while they had the home game against Man City. And Man City leaders in both Erling Haaland, Ruben Diaz, and Bernardo Silva ended up refunding money fans had spent on tickets to go and watch their shambolic performance that ended with a red card being dished out to Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante. So Bodo Glimt is no knockover. It's not a small team, you know. It's not a walk in the park. Sorry, it's not a walk in the park. So Christian Chivu will come in that game knowing the kind of task at hand for him. Then Real Madrid, we know that Benfica beat them by 4-2 to get to this competition, to this stage of the competition, having finished 24th on that league format table at the expense of Olympique Marseille. So we are eagerly looking forward to that one. Atletico de Madrid are in trouble following their 3-0 loss against Rayo Mallorca over the weekend, which came on the back of them putting 4 past Barcelona. So you wonder which Atletico de Madrid is going to show up. The one that Arsenal hammered, the one that Bodo Glimt beat, or the one that has won away to Barcelona, you know? So, unfortunately, it's hard to determine. But Diego Simeone, I was looking at key data, and he's only won 2 major trophies in the last 10 years. The Spanish La Liga in 2021, and then the UEFA Europa League in 2018. Otherwise, for all the other 8 out of 10 seasons, he's gone away trophyless. But he's going away trophyless, the most ugly of things? Maybe not. But for Diego Simeone, he should be fighting for a little more than that. So yeah, those are the fixtures that are going to come your way. I mean, Alvaro Arbeloa has a huge task on his hands to make amends for that terrifying loss that they suffered in Portugal. First of all, if you're going back to Portugal, the idea is how do you cut out the mistakes through which you considered as many as 4. And for Benfica or any team playing at this stage of the competition will know that you ought to utilize that home advantage to the maximum. Use it to better your chances of when you meet in the reverse fixture. You know, so the dynamics at play, I look at Monaco PSG as a domestic derby of some sort. And we know these two have their fair share of rivalry in modern French football, you know. But anyway, guys, allow me wrap it up here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Pedri to give us his overview of what he made of the referee's performance in their 2-1 loss to Girona. I'm sure he was going to go on a scathing attack on the referee, but it is what it is. Pedri Bola, thank you so much for having been part of this morning's podcast. And every single one of you out there, It's been a pleasure. I'll catch you guys next time. Stay blessed for now and have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye-bye.